1 year ago, Thomas Stewart released his first game as a solo indie dev. And since then, he has documented his journey on YouTube, being very honest and transparent. I really appreciate how open he has been, and I wanted to talk with him about his journey, about the raw truth of indie game development. Thomas breaks down why he quits his day job in this conversation, if the past year was successful, and if it's been good enough to continue his journey as an indie developer. So let's jump right into it.
My name's Thomas Stewart. I'm a full-time indie game developer and fledgling YouTuber, and I started off as a programmer a few years ago. That's what I got my degree in college. Decided that the stuff that I was working on wasn't really my cup of tea, so I jumped into the world of game development as a hobbyist and sort of taught myself the technical skills, the ins and outs of making a game with the Unity game engine. Progressed through that to the point where I was able to get employed as a gameplay programmer. Did that for a few years, loved it. And then I got to the point where I wanted to continue expanding my game development skills outside of just the realm of programming, kind of scratch that entrepreneurial itch and also the creativity and design and artistic things that go along with that. Also, my wife was pregnant at the time, and I wanted to be more flexible with my work hours, so all of that culminated in me quitting my full-time job and starting my own game studio to create small-scoped games that I am releasing on Steam and PlayStation and Xbox and Nintendo Switch and Atari VCS. And the plan is for all of those revenue streams to kind of trickle in a bit of recurring revenue each month so that I can keep doing this full time. And that's kind of what I talk about on my YouTube channel. And that's kind of what I'm doing.
And so let's unpack the first piece. Mm-hmm. You quit your job. Why? Why not do both? Why not do indie development, at night, on the side? Yeah. Why quit your job to dive in full on?
Yeah, I did that for a while, and it was very difficult, and I was unhappy with the amount of progress that I was making. So it worked for a time, but I realized that creating games with my free time was unfeasible because it was going to take me like a decade to get to the point where I could release a game, basically, unless I made like super small games. So I decided to take on some of that risk where I saved up some savings and basically had this financial runway where I could go full time and work on games that I'm developing, and that was the primary reason, is I just needed more time.
You've now made multiple games. You have found some financial success. Is this sustainable? Do you see this being something that you can continue to do over the next years, decades? What's this look like?
Yeah, absolutely. I've found that the amount of revenue that I'm bringing in is extending my financial runway, but it's not enough to justify me doing it permanently if I plateau with the amount of revenue I'm bringing in right now. But that being said, I see the trajectory, and I think it's going to work out for me because I'm not. The cool thing is that it's front loaded work. So I build up a game and then I launch it on these different platforms, and then as I'm working on my next game, I'm still getting funds from my previous game sales. And so as those compile, I'm kind of getting to the point where each month my revenue is increasing. And there's like fluctuations because I have like a Steam sale over here and an Xbox sale over here, and sometimes you get spikes in sales, but I'm getting to the point where it's like the sales from the different platforms are evening out, so I can kind of see the steady income, and it's getting to a spot where I think it'll work out as I continue creating and developing these games. But it's interesting because it's not something that I've seen a lot of people do, right? A lot of people go in on one big game and they spend a lot of time and energy developing and then marketing, and then if it doesn't work, they've kind of put all their eggs in one basket. But that method does work for a lot of people, and that's why a lot of people do it. I don't see very many people making smaller scoped games and trying to release quantity, still good quality, but like smaller scoped, more quantity of games. And so that's kind of what I'm striving for.
And it's a fantastic strategy because, as you brought up in the beginning, it teaches you, helps you understand more about game development, and you kind of get a touch on a bunch of different genres. Yeah. So is there something unique or valuable from this experience that you can tell us? Like, you've made multiple games, you've actually made games of different genres. So like, unpack that. What is the most valuable thing you've learned so far during this experience?
Yeah. The thing that I value the most is the ability to complete a project and polish it, because very, very few developers actually get to the finish line. I was recently reading something, I think, that said, there's like the first 90% of development, and then the last 10% is the final 90% also. So just being able to complete a game, it's a lot of effort, and a lot of people don't put in that amount of work to bring something to the finish line. And that's something that I really want to stick myself to, so that I'm not constantly just improving and developing and never releasing. So that's one thing. And then also on the technical side, the first time that I had released a game on any platform is by far the hardest, but now that I am revisiting a lot of the same problems, the same platforms, and publishing in different areas, I get to reuse a lot of the code that I've written. So I'm building out an internal tool set for the games that I'm building, which makes things so much easier. Once you've implemented PlayStation trophies once, I already have these scripts that I can just update the data in, and then I can, unlock trophies pretty easily, and, vibrating controllers and localizing text and all of these things that go into a commercial product. I'm able to dip in and reuse stuff that I've already written. So it feels easier for me as I get going, because I get to focus less on the infrastructure of the game and more on the design and gameplay elements. So
it gets easier. Every game you make
gets
a little easier. Not just because of know-how, but because you actually have some stuff you get to use from previous games, which is interesting, because they are distinctly different games.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? I just wanted to ask you some of these questions from a personal standpoint. Like, I've built multiple projects, and every project, from software to video games to, when I've helped people with hardware and consulted, whatever it is, almost all of them usually entails bringing on more members, more team members. Mm-hmm. There's this interesting dynamic in this dichotomy in game development where it's almost celebrated to be a solo developer. Yeah. And so many people go at it alone. I'm really intrigued. You're really intelligent. You're very personable, right? You're great at both the engineering and the communicative side, right? Why not expand? Why not build a team? Why not try to go bigger? Mm-hmm. Have you thought about this at all?
I have. And I think the biggest thing is risk mitigation. I just... once you partner with people, the risk is higher. You need to bring in more revenue. If I just bring in one more person, suddenly I have to double my sales revenue for it to be justified, right? I can see myself. I like wearing different hats. I like learning all the different disciplines that go into game development. So I enjoy that, but I can see myself expanding my team a little bit. I always like the idea of being in a small team, but one of the areas that I've recognized that I am the weakest in is art. So if I could find like an artist that I could partner with, somebody who could make 2D marketing assets and 3D game assets, and maybe like do level design, that would be like a really good pairing that would complement my natural skill set, I think. But yeah, it's one of those things where I've heard another indie developer talk about being like I forgot what animal he used, like a fly or a tick or a gnat or something really small. Like I'm not trying to get a huge chunk of the market. I'm just trying to be this little bug on the wall that can survive off of like the crumbs of like the Steam revenue or whatever, So I'm trying to just get to the point where I can be sustaining for myself, and that seems to be more feasible than trying to sell millions of dollars in games. The win is being able to continue to do this full time and pick my hours and pick what I work on. That's the win for me. So if I get to the point where I get to support my family, give the quality of life to my wife and my daughter that is adequate, and I get to log into my laptop and pick what I want to do, pick my work hours, take vacation sometimes, like that. That's the win for me, because I like the process. Like I'm not, if I wanted to get rich, I would probably do something else, because I have other probably more lucrative opportunities. But yeah, I just love it. I think it's a really fun creative outlet, and I like the process of learning and creating, and getting to see other people enjoy the things that I create. So
isn't that fascinating? There's a line that you said, you can make a lot more money doing other things. That seems to be a common sentiment. So many bright, so many very, talented individuals are working for below minimum wage, making games. And again, the first question I'd ask you is, why'd you quit? Right. And so to even expound on that, it's like, why not go back? Why not? You want to make this work, right? That's your goal, and you're killing it, right? You're releasing games, you're doing the work. Mm-hmm. Why not go back if you can make more money there?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's you can get real philosophical about this. Like, when I was contemplating quitting my full-time job, I made a spreadsheet, because I wanted to try and give myself like a quantitative point system that would allow me to objectively make some decisions about what I wanted to do with my career, right? And so I was trying to discern what are the things that contribute toward all these different facets of why somebody may go into a certain career. And it was like enjoyment of the process, and finding purpose in it, and how much money you can make, and like having like a social community, like team that you work in, and like how easy it is, how challenging it is, like opportunities to learn. And like I made this spreadsheet, and I gave like a point system for all these different things that I could do. And for me, it was like, yeah, being an indie developer checks a lot of those boxes, and I objectively got a lot more points from that category for all of the different things that I value, and so there are other things that I could do to make more money, and that's like why people work, right, is to make money. But if I can make enough, then that's okay for me.
That's great. And it's always interesting. I know that we say, hey, we're indie developers, but really, by nature of my background, I see us all as entrepreneurs, because this is just another big project, another big venture that I've been working on, and I've been doing this for 6+ years. Where when I quit Google and I started my first software company, and what's fascinating is I have made so little money. I've made a lot of money. I personally have made so little money, and because I just pump it all back, right? You pump back into the projects, and I think there's this piece where there's almost like you make a little, you like make some money, and it's just like somehow that little bit of money feels so much more gratifying than maybe that lot of money you make at a job.
Yeah,
and
totally.
And it's hard. Right, it's hard to quantify that, right? Because you're saying like, yeah, dude, this money comparably is a lot less, yet I feel so much better about that money.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's almost addicting. Like that. Yeah. That's the best way I explain to people. It's like, I keep doing this, and I have multiple projects going on, which, by the way, I would argue is a mistake. It causes a lot of issues, but like it is addicting in the sense that you're always like, ooh, just a little bit more, push this a little bit farther, see how much more you can take it. And I'm curious, like, do you feel that, right? Like you've made some money, you're like, it's pushed my runway, right? Yep. Originally I remember you told me you had a year runway, right? Yep. You've pushed that runway a little bit. Yep. Like,
yep.
What's that looking
100%. Like? Yeah. Pushing and having additional projects is a very big issue in the game development community specifically, because a lot of people will start numerous different projects and never complete them, right? Which brings me back to why I try and value, bringing games to market and cutting scope so that I can release things that are smaller. And I think that that's a skill that very few indie developers have, and I'm trying to, as I go, almost like extend my leash a little bit. Like I restrain myself actively, and then I'm like, okay, you've made this game that's a little bit bigger. Now you get to go for something that is, a little bit bigger in scope, and you can work on that for a little while. But I do the same thing where I have multiple projects going all the time. Even if it's the same game, it's like, okay, I'm porting to this console, and I'm porting to this console, and I'm working on a YouTube video, and I'm trying to do collaborations with other developers, and I'm trying to juggle what all of that looks like. And I have different prototypes that I'm working on, and I'm pitching to publishers, and I'm doing all of this stuff, and just try and figure out where my time is best spent, I guess.
Hard to do.
Yeah.
Not easy to do. And so do you feel like you're pushing this, though? I know I asked a few questions. So do you feel like you're pushing the envelope a bit? Because you're like, I'm finding success.
Yep.
Right? Are you pushing that timeline a little bit?
Yep. Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, financially, I gave myself like a year to figure this out. And at the end of the year, I wasn't making enough money to where I was comfortable. And so, but one of the things, I have a lot of open conversations with my wife, and, we have a little daughter now. And so I'm trying to maintain responsibilities, and not just continually pursue this thing until, we're broken on the street or anything like that. We're doing all right. But I have a lot of open conversations with my wife about, here's how all the revenue streams are looking, and here's kind of the trajectory. And that's kind of what I'm focused on right now, is like the trajectory. It's not necessarily about the dollar amount, as long as we have that buffer room to continue me investing the time and effort into this. As long as that is growing, then I think it makes sense to keep doing it.
Thanks, Thomas, for chatting with me and being so transparent with us and your community. Definitely a great example for everyone trying to get into indie development. Be like Thomas, guys. Make a plan and try your best. Good luck, everyone, in your journey. We'll see you next time.